Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries. And in this edition, we're going to talk to our students and our teachers about a program called Visual Poet. And Visual Poet is a really interesting program that can be used across curricular areas for a wide variety of things. And so we're also going to be talking about not only a single program, but when you look at programs, can they be used for multiple things? So that's kind of the topic we're talking about today, multiple uses of programs, and then also this particular example, Visual Poet. So let's talk about apps that have multiple purposes. You know, when you buy a program, or even when you find a free program, the best use of that is if you can get multiple uses out of it. Can that program do multiple things? And so I like to think back to that, to the old Ford Model T. When the Ford Model T first came out, they didn't just use it as a car like we just use it for cars today. For example, here's a picture of an old Model T, and what they used it for back in the old days. This is an old rusted thing, but when it came out, they would use it for all types of things. So for instance, they would convert it into like a buzz saw in a sawmill. I have some other pictures of uses of the old Ford Model Ts. In the upper left-hand corner there, there's the use of it as like the early Zamboni, where they used it to level out ice skating rinks. Over on the right-hand side, they use it as a sawmill. And then down there at the bottom, that's an old picture of a Model T being used to grind and mill grain. So they got a lot of uses out of a single device. And so that's something that you need to think about when you're using apps as well. Can we just use this app for one thing, or can this app be used for multiple things? One device, many uses. That's what we did with that Model T. Now, a lot of you probably know this guy. This guy's named Alton Brown. He's on the Food Network. He's a host of a lot of different shows. He's had lots and lots of success as a guy that kind of shows people how to cook. He had a show called Good Eats on for a long time. But one of the things that really interested me about Alton Brown is that he likes to say this. He likes to say that there should be nothing in a kitchen that only does one thing. He likes to use the phrase, one gadget, many uses. In other words, there shouldn't be just something that does one thing, because that's a waste of space, it's a waste of money. So when he buys things for his kitchen or his appliances or things like that, he likes to buy them for multiple uses. So for instance, he likes to use these as an example. A pizza cutter. Well, when you buy a pizza cutter, you think, I'm just going to use that for cutting pizza. But in Alton Brown's world of one gadget, many uses, his pizza cutter not only is used to cut pizza, but it's also a great dough cutter. It can be used to cut things like lasagna. It can be used to cut things like all different kinds of different foods. And so he doesn't just use a pizza cutter to cut pizza. He can use it to cut all different kinds of things, because really it's just a rolling blade. So he's got pizza cutters doing lots of different things. Another example that he likes to use of a gadget that's used for multiple purposes is a panini press. A lot of people go out and buy panini presses and just make paninis with them, but you can also use them to grill steaks, and he even makes omelets on his panini presses. So he can do lots of different things with one device. And so keeping that in mind in the old Ford Model T, one gadget, many uses, kind of moving that into the 21st century with our iPads and things like that. One app, many uses. Kind of think about that. When you're looking at an app, when you're looking at putting an app on your iPads or on your computers, think, can this be used for multiple purposes across multiple grade levels in multiple curricular areas? So we found one. We found one that does that, and it's called Visual Poet. And the reason we're using Visual Poet as an example is because if you just look at the title, if you were just looking at that title, you would think, I can only use this this app to make poetry. That's it, because it's called Visual Poet. But really, this app can be used for all different kinds of things. Now, if you're one of our TLI grant schools, you have this program already loaded on your student iPads. It's in the middle school and the high school. And so, but it's a free program, so even if you're at the elementary, you can go get it if you want. So let's take a look at visual poetry. What is it? Well, visual poetry actually creates what's called three picture stories. And so let's look at, here's an example of one. This is that where they actually use it to create a poem of some kind. So here's one where somebody's like, find your balance sometimes requires rust on your hands. Okay, so you can see that there's three pictures and three sayings that go with it. Here's another one that somebody wrote. You and I are born of the same enchanted dust, blown apart and drawn together by an infinite lust. We are the in and the and out breath of the cosmic life and death. So you can see that this kind of really deep, beautiful poetry somebody wrote. And it doesn't take a whole lot to write a three-panel poem here and make up visual poetry. And so here's the last one. Train a child in a way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. So it's kind of interesting, really cool little way for students to express themselves very quickly and very beautifully. If they put in their own pictures, they can go out and get pictures off the internet. There's different ways of doing that. So you can make poems with visual poet. You can certainly do that, but there are other uses for this as well. There are other things that you can do. For instance, you can create something called a three-picture story, where something goes in sequence from beginning to end. Students can, if they're working on a project, they can take three pictures with their iPad and put them in sequence. Now, I know sequencing is something that's very important to our students, and it's it's in our TEKS. And so sequencing from lots of different things, like in labs or in stories or all different kinds of things, is very important that we start building a Lego something and we end up with a completed product. So three picture stories are something we can do with Visual Poet. The three picture lab report is another example of something you can do. You can use science in here. Students are working on a lab, they're doing some kind of demonstration, they're doing some kind of lab in class. They can take three pictures and then explain what's going on in each one of those pictures. We're going to do one of those in just a second. So another thing that you can do is a three-picture biography of somebody. I know that one of the things that we talk about in our social studies is biographies of famous people. So we could condense their lives down into three pictures and highlight the three big events that took place in that person's life in a three-picture biography. So we're going to actually jump in and show you how to actually make something using visual poetry. So let's jump in and see how that looks. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at how you would make a visual poem. So, and we're not going to do a poem this time. We're going to do something that has to do with science. We're going to do like a little science lab. Now we're going to go grab some pictures off the internet, so they may not be exactly the ones that we would use in a real experiment, but yeah, you'll get the idea when we're done. So let's go to our iPad here, and we're going to find the icon for Visual Poet, and we just click on it, and there it comes on. And what happens is you come up with a screen that looks just like this. And what this screen is asking you for is to start creating your poem. Now, obviously, you've got a bunch of choices here. You can create a poem, you can polish a poem, you can publish the poem, or you can scrap it, your three-picture story or your poem, whatever you've got. And once you've got several poems in there, then you can browse, you can go back and work on them and things like that. What we want to do is we want to create our poem. So we're going to hit the button, Create. So as soon as that comes up, the three panels for our poem come up, or our story, or our biography, or whatever we're doing. So, and all you got to do to add things in there is tap to edit. It's pretty obvious how to do that. You use your fingers, start tapping. But let's give this a title first. We want to give it some kind of title, and we're going to call this Potato Battery. Okay, and I'm going to instead of giving myself credit for the pictures, which we should do, if we go out and get the pictures somewhere else, then we should give credit to where those pictures are going. But I'm going to just give a little description of it. This is an experiment we did using potatoes to make a battery. Okay, so obviously we don't have a poem here. We have a potato battery experiment. Now, what we could do here is In that final place where you've got like a much larger area, students can reflect on their learning. They can put down something that they learned in this lesson. I can say, maybe at the end, I learned that potatoes are not as good at making batteries as lemons are. Okay, so maybe that's something. I'm just doing it really quickly. They can actually expand upon that, make it a little bit larger. So let's go ahead and start working on our poem here, or our 3-panel picture. So I'm going to tap to edit, and then what happens is a little book comes up, and it has a picture here. It says tap in panel to add text, double tap to edit the text, and then what we want to do is, the first thing we want to do is go get a new image. So we're going to go get a new image, and when we click on get a new image, what comes up along the bottom are places that you can go get images from. So you can get images from Tumblr, or from Flickr, or from Google, or from the library. For most of our students' purposes, they'll either get them from the library of pictures that they've taken themselves in class, that would be the library, or from Google. So in our cases, we're going to click on Google. It asks when you click on that to come up with some kind of search term. So let's, I'm going to put in potato battery. And if I spelled potato correctly, I would probably get better results. So there's potato battery, and I do a search. There we go. And whoops, and then we're going to use it. Now, once you've got that picture in, then this little red area comes up, and it says, what part of that picture do you want to use? You can actually use a small portion of it. You can crop a small portion. You can use a much larger portion of it. So I'm going to make a pretty big section of it, and it says double tap to use that region. And then, so that's our picture in our first panel. And now we've got to add some text to say what's going on. So in order to add text, it's pretty easy, it's pretty obvious. Tap in panel to add text. So I'm going to just tap in the panel to add text, and I'm going to type in, we gathered our materials. Okay, so there's our text. And so that's our first panel. So we go back, and you can see now that we've done our first panel, and then we have 2 more to go. So let's do another one here. Tap to edit. Let's go back, find a new image in Google, and I'm going to go potato battery again. I keep misspelling it. And maybe there's a better picture here. I'm going to use that one. So there, and then double tap to use it. And then I want to add text. So to tap, again, like we did before, tap in the panel to add the text. And so we connected the wires to the 2 different metals in the, whoops, whoa. That's really some bad typing there. We connected the wires to the 2 metals in the potato. You get the idea how that works. My spelling is really, really bad there. And so, but for sake of time, we're going to use that. We're going to use that region, and then that's done. So now we've got 2, and now we add that one last one. Double tap to edit. We can either use the existing picture, we can use the same picture again if we want, or we can go out and get a new image. I'm going to go get I'm going to click from Google, go get a new image. Again, potato battery. The whole idea here is that we're not making a poem here, even though the title of the app is Visual Poem or Visual Poetry or whatever, Visual Poet. We're not actually making poetry. We're actually making a 3-picture story. So I'm going to go find some more pictures here maybe. Let's see. I'll use that one. Click Use. Double tap. And then tap in panel to add text. And then once we, whoops. By the way, if you double click and there's always a little X that you can get rid of whatever you're working on. So I'm going to get rid of that one and that one. I'm going to start all over again. And you can actually add more than one text space in a picture. You don't have to have just one per picture. You can actually add multiple ones. So I'm going to type in, it was able to light a low volt LED. I'm just making that up, but I'm going to pretend that's what it is. You can also make the text bigger or smaller. Say, okay, that was good. You can actually even move the text around. As you can see here, I can move the text around in the picture. And if I want to add another one, the experiment was a success. Exclamation point, yay! And I'm done. So I can move that to the top, move that to the bottom. So now I've got done, and now I'm done with that. And now I've got my 3-picture story. We gathered our materials, I should say our materials. We connected the wires to the probe. We were able to allow the volt LED. Check your spelling. My spelling's terrible. And actually I have the silly autocorrect on here, so it comes up with all different kinds of weird stuff. So when you're done, let's say I've successfully made one. I've corrected my spelling. I'm ready to hand it in. Now what do we do with it? There's actually a couple of ways to save this. One thing that I've found is that it would be really neat to save it just like this and send that to the teacher. And the way to do that is, we've learned before, is to just take a screenshot of it. And so once you take a screenshot, which is to hit the home button and the power button at the same time, we've taken a screenshot of it. Now that's in our camera roll, and we can go send that off to our teacher. If we go look in our photos here, there it is. It's in our photos. So we've actually added this to our photos, and we can send that off all different ways, email, all different kinds of ways. Within the program itself, you can actually, once you save it, you can actually publish it out. And you can, they're kind of limited on where you can publish it. There's a place called Tumblr. We don't have that in our EPISD filter. It's blocked by the filter, so we don't worry about Tumblr. But students can actually email this poem to you or to themselves or whatever from their iPad. So that's how you do it. That's Visual Poet. Now, really quickly, it's just a 3-picture story. It's don't be fooled by the name of an app. When you're looking at apps, see if you can do multiple things with an app at one time. This is obviously not just for writing poetry. You can do any kind of 3-picture story. And so that's kind of cool. When I was showing this to another group of teachers, I said this side of the work is kind of where the students are, where they talk in text and they talk in short sentences and Twitter and things like this. This other side, when we were polishing it up and we were adding 2 things over here, and this side, this is where we speak in complete sentences and really long phrases, things like that. So this is kind of like the teacher side of it. This is the student side of it. It's a really neat little program. It's available right now for our TLI grant schools in middle school and high school. It's a free program. It's a really nice program called Visual Poet. Thanks for joining me for this edition of Digital Discoveries. Please go out and use all those apps that are on those iPads. I think your kids will really get a kick out of using this type of stuff. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.